Hi, CrisMarie Campbell.
And Susan Clark.
And today we're going to talk to you about something that the discomfort you're feeling, which is likely grief.
And this actually, there was an article recently in the Harvard Business Review, and it was loosely around an edited version of a conversation with David Kessler, who worked for years with Elizabeth Kubler-Ross and is probably one of the world-renowned experts in the area of grief.
And he talks about the stages of grief, which I could really relate to, like denial, like, well, this thing isn't really going to affect us, and then it did. And then there's anger, like, oh, you're sending me home and I've got to work virtually. I can't watch sports on TV.
Or even, I've got to stay in my house for 2 weeks or, however long it is. You got to be kidding.
And then there's the bargaining, like, okay, I'll stay in my house for 2 weeks and then it'll be over, right? And then you're confronted with, no, it's not until May or June. And then there is the sadness, like, wow, I don't know when this is going to end.
Or somebody I know died, I mean, I know John Prine died. And I was like, I remember him as a singer and he would be, and I was like, this is real. Not that it wasn't real before that, but little things
that make it more real. And then there's finally acceptance, which is healthy, like, okay, I can wash my hands, I can learn to work at home virtually. But the problem is we go through these, that's the first stage, but then something else happens and you go through that cycle all over again.
And some of the things that are, there's all different types of grief. Like there's the grief of losing my structure and control. There's the grief of actually people dying and people I know being impacted. There's anticipatory grief, like what's going to happen next? Is our market going to survive? Or people in my family can come up as well.
And so some things to remember is, one, recognize what you can control and what you can't, and try to let go of those things that you can't control. And the other step is to become present.
And the idea really with that anticipatory grief, so much of it is actually related to what's going to happen in the future. And that's really where, if you can bring yourself into the present, it can be really helpful because that is one, you do have some control over where your thoughts are going. You can't control some of those other things and the fact that this is probably a one time where it's both a macro and a micro situation that we're going through. Things are happening right here in your own world, but things are happening all over the globe.
And your primitive brain knows something is going wrong, but it can't see it, and that is really discombobulating. So you may be more stressed than you even know. So I know for me, last week I was doing it, I was engaged, and then I was on a call where a colleague of mine who's over on the East Coast said, "Yeah, we're locked down till June 10th." And I was thinking the end of April, maybe long. And so June 10th, I went through all those stages. And it really, I wasn't very productive for the rest of the day because I was kind of digesting that piece of information. So be compassionate with yourself when you think, oh, everything's great. And then boop, something happens and you go through these stages.
And do what you can to stay present. And just remember, we're all in this together.